Different's great, but being different for the sake of being different, I'm not a big fan of, right? If you just want to be different for the sake
technology
of it.
Technology, I would hide behind it.
And you start to hear some of their challenges, and yes.
Because it speaks to the core of who you are and what drives you forward. Because what makes you different is what drives you. Right, welcome everybody to the Master Connector Show. I'm one of your co-hosts, Rob Genovesi. I'm glad you joined us today, and hopefully you're joining us every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time or Eastern Daylight Time. I'm not sure what we are, but it's Eastern regardless, so you can join us. But mark your calendar. Better yet, go to masterconnector.show. See some of the upcoming shows. Follow Master Connector Show on LinkedIn. And you will be on top of every guest that's coming up, because every week we have amazing guests coming your way. My co-host, Steve Spiro, we go back about 27 years. Every time I say it, I think, well, it's going to be more every time I say it, but it's about 27 years, 28 years. Started out as, two former shy guys, both introverts. We both had a lot of similarities, but some differences. I personally was clueless. I didn't know anything about relationships, business, leadership. I knew nothing. I could barely talk to people. And when I tell you that, it's the God's honest truth. I'm not even overstating it, because I couldn't think of words to come out of my mouth that would create a conversation with somebody. I think Steve had a little better start than I did. He already had some accomplishments by the time we met in our late 20s. Accomplished martial artist, owned an advertising agency in New York City. Like, this is pretty good stuff. So he had some success under his belt. So he knew what it tasted like. I was still kind of trying to figure myself out. He was well on his way, but our paths diverged, and a bunch of years ago, and we came back together about 4 or 5 years ago in the networking space. And both of us love to network and meet new people, connect with good people, because there's one thing for sure that I know, and that's anything you want to accomplish great in life, you're going to do it with other people. So listen, after all this time, Steve and I start out, like I said, introverts, shy guys, but today we are Master Connectors, but he is the Master Connector. So let's bring him on right now. My co-host, the Master Connector, Mr. Steve Spiro. What's up, Steve?
What's going on, Robbie G? I tell you what, in terms of people skills, relationships, communicating, being a martial artist, I would rather hit you, punch you, than talk with you. That was not in my nature whatsoever. But because of some amazing people that you and I have both known and had the pleasure and privilege to work with, some mentors, I've been able to grow and establish better connection skills, if you will. So I appreciate the kind words, but it's great to have you as a co-host. Very blessed to have you on the show. We're super excited. But what's going on, friends? Steve Spiro, the Master Connector, coming at you live and direct. And I'll tell you what, make sure you get in the comments, connect. We want to make sure that, this is the Master Connector show. So we want to know where you're tuning in from, what city, state, what country. Tell us what you do, right? If you see somebody else in the comments, and hopefully everyone that's watching is in the comments, because we don't know if you're in the we don't know if you're watching, because unless you're in the comments, we don't know. So get in there. Who we are, what you do, connect with each other. It's a great opportunity. This is the Master Connector Show, and we are, as a community, we're LinkedIn participants, not LinkedIn lurkers. So we want to see you, get the most out of this. And remember, this is your show. It's not our show. This is your show. So we're here for you. But, today we're going to be talking about unearthing your vulnerable story. And this involves delving into the depths of our personal experience and emotions, revealing the parts of ourselves that we may have kept hidden out of fear, shame, or pain. I could absolutely relate to that. Being an introvert, being picked on and bullied and dyslexic, I had a lot of insecurities and inadequacies. And, in this process of self-disclosure can be profoundly healing, right? Fostering genuine connections with others who resonate with your journey. As I started to share those insecurities and become others focused, the connections became powerful. I became extremely confident, powerfully confident, right? So it encourages, authenticity and encourage breaking down the barriers that prevent true intimacy and understanding. because I was so wounded, the only thing I could think about was self-protection. And when you're in protection mode, you're just thinking about yourself, you're closed off. And the mentor that Rob was referring to, he would say, like, Steve, there's something a little bit different about you. And what it was I was just so closed because I was so wounded. I was broken. I was a broken individual. But ultimately, by sharing our vulnerabilities, it not only lightens our own burden, but also empowers others to embrace and share their own stories, and creating a ripple effect of empathy and compassion. When I officially started, which started really heavily happening in the beginning of COVID, I started sharing those vulnerabilities and those stories, and my background, and it really changed for me. My connections with people became powerful. As I said, I became powerfully confident. So this is going to be a great show. If you're ready, I want you to go in ready to obviously have my man, Mr. Rob G, introduce our guest today. Type in "let's go" and let's get this party started. Rob, I'll turn it to you, sir. So blessed to have you on the show.
Same here, Steve. Thank you so much. Listen, like I said earlier, we have great guests that come on here every single week, and that's a big credit to Steve, who is an incredible networker, but seeking out people who can bring something to the table to help all of you level up. Steve and I are just a conduit to bring you awesome, awesome people who are accomplished. I mean, people who have done all kinds of things, and today's guest is no different. Our guest today is Danielle Perlin-Good. She is the soul-aligned ghostwriter and an award-winning best-selling author. She empowers thought leaders to amplify their lasting legacies by unleashing their nonfiction content, creating a profound impact, and transforming lives. With a wealth of experience, she's contributed to over 20 books, ranging from memoirs and thought leadership books to business and personal growth books. Additionally, she provides book and story coaching, editing, and consulting service to C-suite executives, ensuring their messaging is concise, beautiful, and genuinely authentic, one of my favorite parts. Danielle incorporates quantum healing modalities to ensure her clients' transformative journey results in a beautifully crafted and publishable book that they will cherish for a lifetime. Please welcome to the show, Danielle Perlin-Good. Hey, Danielle. Welcome.
Hey, Rob. Hey, Steve. Thanks so much for having me today.
So cool to have you on the show here, Danielle. It's going to be an amazing show. We're excited to have you. Yeah, quantum healing. I love to. We're going to get into that a little bit today. It's going to be awesome. So blessed to have you. So here we're going to dive right into it. So community, type in hashtag inspire, and I want to just acknowledge hello, Ann having you, Ann Sullivan on, and Yolanda, our amazing community member, on with us. We're just so blessed to have you, Yolanda, here with us. But listen, as I don't like to be called a motivational speaker, I'm more of an inspirational speaker. In fact, that's what I refer to myself as, obviously, other than keynote speaker, of course. But we talk a lot about inspire. So hashtag inspired community. And here's what we wanted to ask you, because we love stories, right? So tell us a little bit, right? What inspired you, Danielle, to start sharing your vulnerable story with others?
I love this question, Steve. In terms of my own story, I will share a little bit in terms of how I got started in the book coaching realm. So, as Rob introduced me, I have over 20 years of writing and editing experience. And in 2019, I was nursing my son, who was about 6, 7 months old at the time. And I was listening to an audiobook. It was 1 a.m. It was pitch black. I had my Bluetooth headphones in. And as I was sitting there, I had a spiritual awakening, is what I call it. Some people call it that. Some people call it a gut instinct. Some people say they hear their inner voice coming towards them. And when you sit and you're able to be present and in the present moment, I truly believe that that voice, whatever you might call it, does come to fruition. So in this case, I heard this voice tell me that I needed to become a book coach. And I went the next day and I searched more about book coaching and I learned more about book coaching. And I recognized and realized that I can become a book coach with my storytelling experience and my writing and editing. And so I started very small and showed people and told people and was my authentic self and said, listen, I haven't done book coaching, but I've been writing and editing for a long time. I know how to tell a story. Will you give me a chance? And people did. People gave me a chance. And that's how I built my business and how I built the business that I have today. Because people give chances when you're honest and authentic and vulnerable.
Love that. Yeah, it's so cool when I get to be on stage, and one of the things I love, and I feel like it really connects with the audience when I'm really sharing some of those stories with them. I did so I was posting all week about this topic, and I love the fact of having the ability and listen. Sometimes when I'm up on stage, I get a little emotional. I get a little teary eyed because I'm speaking from the heart. But Rob, you jumped in. You got something?
Yeah, I just want to something you said, Danielle, that I'm sure a lot of people kind of miss. And when you said you heard a voice, something spoke to you. Some people think that's figurative. Some people do take it literally. I want to point that out because if you're listening to this and you have a hard time making decisions, should I go this route? Should I go that route? I'm going to tell you from personal experience, I felt the nudgings. And every time I ignored that strong nudge inside that said, Rob, go this way, I missed an opportunity. And
Mhm.
every time I said, wait a minute, something's here, and I go down that road, not knowing where it leads necessarily, it's always led to something I needed. And in hindsight, it was right. So, when you said you heard that voice, if you're out there, if you hear the voice, if you feel a nudging and turning like your heart saying, go this way, and you don't know why, just go. Just go.
I heard it said, God, higher power, whatever, universe, can't
Yeah.
steer a parked car, right? You got to move. You got to move, and then you'll get steered, right? It's
Yeah.
pretty cool. Love that. All right, so we're going to dig into authenticity, Danielle, and if you have some other things you want to share on the previous topic, you're welcome to throw it in there. But community, type in hashtag authentic, and we want to dig on this, right? Because the topic today is right. Unearthing your authentic story. So let's talk authentic and authenticity, right? So how do you ensure that your storytelling remains authentic and resonates with your target audience?
Mm. Again, great question, because what matters to your target audience, especially if you're a business leader or in thought leadership consulting, you're a C-suite executive, and marketing is a large part or a large portion of either your job or somebody under you, your company. Marketing matters a lot in every single company. And in terms of being authentic, people know now if you are truly being authentic with what you want to tell them. And they will read an ad, they will read whatever marketing materials you put out, they will read case studies, white papers, posts. And if those stories do not feel authentic to them, they will not buy your product. They will not buy your service. So, in terms of ensuring that your storytelling remains in that authentic, vulnerable level, you really need to ask yourself, do I truly know what I want to say here? Right? That's number one. Am I just making this up? Do I really want to say what, I want to say on this particular topic? Is it researched heavily? Or am I just flying by the seat of my pants? And which, could be fine in some instances, but if you want to remain truly authentic, you do want to have that backbone inside of you so that your readers believe what you're sharing. If you don't believe what you're sharing, your reader is certainly not going to believe it either.
I gotta jump in on what you're saying here. So I was on, I have a goal to be on a TEDx stage. It's going to happen
Mhm.
at some point soon, and in
Yeah.
fact, I'm going to Atlanta for. I'm not going to be a speaker. I'm a special guest, but I believe that's going to be one of the catalysts to this. Anyway, I was speaking to somebody who is a TEDx organizer, and she's done like 4 or 5, different ones over the last 4 years. And she said she had somebody apply, and this was somebody who was like a high level TV personality, and her topic that she applied about was AI. And so the organizer, she said, I looked into, she says, one of the things I do is when somebody applies with a particular topic, I look them up online and I see what their content, and I see, do they have a expertise about this? And
Yeah.
she knew nothing about it, AI. She called her on it. She's like, why are you doing this? I mean, and she's like, well, I thought it was a cool topic, but there was no, or, really a heart behind it. It was just because it's a cool topic. And so that's the amazing thing about being authentic. It's part of who we are. And, public speaking was hard for me in the beginning stages until I realized you just speak from the heart. That's how Rob and I kind of cut our teeth early on in the business realm, being asked to speak before 4 or 5 people, and then eventually 10, 15, 20 people. And then, because if you're speaking from things, your heart, it's in your heart, it's authentic, it's easy to talk. When you're talking, you're trying to memorize a speech, it's really hard. So I can't agree with you more on,
Yeah.
being authentic.
Yeah. And you know what's interesting about that particular story, Steve, is because I find too that there might be speaking coaches or somebody else out there. And I'm not dissing anybody who says this, but somebody probably told her to apply with that topic because it's a hot topic. And we have to look at, not only what the hot topics are industry wise, but what we're able to contribute to those topics. And if
Right.
we can't contribute adequately, then we have no business talking about them.
No, 100%. Well, good stuff. So I want to talk about breakthrough. So type in community hashtag breakthrough, because we're kind of digging into that now a little bit. So I'd love to hear you share a moment when telling your story led to a breakthrough, either for you or maybe someone in your audience. Like for me, I love when I see people in the audience, they're leaning forward, their pupils dilate. You know that they're engaged. It's hitting their heart. But beyond that, what propels people to move. That's why I like being considered an inspirational speaker versus a motivational speaker, because I want to inspire people, not motivate them, because motivation is temporary. Motivation is an inside job, but you could be inspired. So tell us about a breakthrough if you could.
Absolutely. In terms of, my own breakthroughs, I would actually rather talk about a couple of clients that I have. Okay, wonderful. So I have this one client. I'm not going to say her name for privacy purposes, but we're in a book coaching engagement. And she came to me and said, I have all these ideas. I have all these things. I've been doing this coaching business for 20 years. She's not a pandemic coach. That's what I call people who started coaching in 2020. Because there are a lot of people who said, oh, I don't have a job now. And anyways, I digress. What happened was I asked her in our onboarding session, tell me about your process. Tell me about how you get somebody who needs your coaching from point A to point B. What is that bridge? What is that gap that you need, right? And what mattered to me in that conversation is her light bulb went off in her head. And she said, oh my gosh, I have never talked about my process out loud before. I have it written down in different places. I've never actually told anybody from start to finish what that process should look like. And to me, that is one of the pillars of a great, not only coaching program, but a good book on your coaching program. And to me, that matters because that's not only her story, that's how she helps others.
Yeah. I got to jump in there for a second, and Danielle, you're just talking my language because, I create brands, teach people how to create brands for themselves. A lot of solopreneurs are clients of mine who are looking to DIY their own brand. We teach them how to do it. But when you talk about your story, you're talking about authenticity. You're talking about process. We talk about all these things, and these are key things to help a person attract the right clients for them. When you talk about the process, by the way, you're one of the few people I've heard say that. And if anybody's heard me more than a couple of times, they hear me talk about it all the time. It's one of the biggest impacts you can make in attracting better clients is to talk about your process, because people, they look at us, they go, should I hire them? Are they credible? Number one. Number two, if I'm going to put my hard-earned money out there, can I trust them with it? So how much risk am I taking on here? And when you have a process, automatically trust goes up and risk goes down in people's minds. So I love that you said that, but can you talk about that in terms of a person goes, well, there's 73 steps to what I do. Like, what do they do when there's so much in their process?
That's an excellent question. So, what I like to do, if there is so much, which I have worked with people and leadership coaching and thought leadership in all those capacities for all those steps. So, what I like to do is break down into content pillars, just like we do in marketing. I'm sure you do with branding as well, right? So, we do 3 to 5 content pillars. What are those content pillars of things that you really want to share with your audience? And what does that look like in your step-by-step process? Right. And then do we need every single step in a book form? Right. So that's another thing that people don't necessarily think about is what needs to be in the book from that process that's going to resonate most with your audience. Because you also don't want to put a 73-step process in a book, because guess what? It's just going to overwhelm the reader. And then the reader is going to say, oh, this is so much information. I don't want to go into this. The point is to have a wide wingspan, a wide viewpoint on what you do, so that somebody can read, your book or see your YouTube videos, right? Or read your content, however you're putting out your information, and then want to learn more information, more details. So if it's a 73-step process, say, okay, what are the 5 parts of that 73-step process, right? And then what parts actually are somewhat similar in each of those steps, and what's different, and how can we combine things to make the most sense for your target market?
Wow, good stuff. I mean, you're essentially saying you got to distill it down, right? But that's what you do. That's what you help people do, because that's not easy to do on your own if you've never done it. But so thank you for the clarification.
Yeah,
Great.
of course.
I love
Thank
that
you.
you have a system in place. That's great, which makes sense, right? Well, I want to talk a little bit about something called poise. So, community, type in hashtag poise, and here's what the point of the question is, right? A lot of times when I've shared with people, hey, you need to be a little bit more vulnerable and kind of get into some of those things. They're like, well, I just I'm going to get embarrassed, or maybe I'll lose some of my credibility, whatever. So here's the question, right? What strategies do you use to maintain confidence and poise when discussing deeply personal experiences? Give us your perspective, if you could, on that.
Mhm. I find, and I actually wrote this down, so I might look down at some of my notes, but a few things to that you can do to maintain confidence while sharing those vulnerable stories are making sure that you're fully present and engaged with yourself at all times. So part of that is self-care. And a lot of people don't think about self-care as being having anything to do with your work or your productivity, but it has everything to do with your work and productivity. And if we don't put in place those self-care methods, it can be anything. It can be waking up early and working out. It can be, a martial arts champion. It can be anything. It can be meditating for a few minutes. It can be walking outside. I find that there are a lot of studies on how getting a certain amount of sunlight every day, can be really helpful for you in
Yep.
terms of maintaining that presence. And I believe that when you're present, you will maintain more confidence and be able to then tap into those vulnerable moments of your past. And if we're not, and that's part of what I like to do with my clients, honestly, and that's actually where quantum energy healing comes into play too, because I do offer meditation as a tool in my toolbox for my clients who believe that that will be helpful in maintaining the present, right? So I have really, really busy clients. If they come to me and they have 5 million things that are going on in their lives, and it's the first 5 minutes, I have to interview them to get stories. That's not going to happen. They're not going to be able to tap into their vulnerability if they're not able to focus and be present for that 45 minutes or an hour or 2 hours, whatever it is. So we get into the present moment by meditating, I'll have them go on a walk. I'll have, different things in place so that we can really make the most of our time.
Great.
I just want to say something here. For all you macho men out there, this vulnerability thing, I've heard guys say, vulnerability, Brene Brown is very popular for this, and people go, that's not for me. Let me tell you something about vulnerability. Men, people who are too cool or too strong, you think you don't need to do. Vulnerability is one of the greatest tools you can use. Like what Danielle say, when you're an example of vulnerability, people trust you more.
Yes.
Right.
And trust is really what we're after when you're working with somebody, when you're looking to attract people to you. If they know they can trust you, their walls go down and they're willing to do something. It may be a collaborative effort, maybe hiring you. It doesn't really matter. We're talking about networking. We're talking about connecting with people, exposing your vulnerabilities a little bit. Like, don't meet somebody and tell them about your life-threatening illness that you're fighting. Like, that's a little too much. But, a little something to make them feel like this is a human being I'm talking to. So I just wanted to add that in there because I think there's a lot of people that go, vulnerability, but it's so key.
Great perspective. And it's going to get us to the last piece that we're going to talk on, which is emotion. So type in #emotion. But I want to just say this, right? And Rob and I know some similar people because we've known each other for 27 years. There are two guys in general, two men that I think of. Both were known when they were talking with people in public and stage, they would get extremely emotional. And these are men's men. But I had so much more respect for them because they were not afraid to show that emotion. To me, that made them even more powerful in my mind because I know you're right. As men, we're programmed, don't show emotion, right? In the martial arts, we're told, show no emotion, show no fear, show no pain. Well, that was good for a little while, but not if you want to grow and really connect with people. So great stuff. So here's the question on emotion as we're wrapping up, and maybe you could kind of quick answer, Danielle, and then maybe a little wrap up any final comments. But how do you balance the emotional investment required to share your story with the other demands on your time and energy?
What I always say is we have 24 hours in a given day. Everybody does. There are lots of studies on, people saying that, right? There are lots of books that say, okay, lots of famous people saying we all have 24 hours in a given day. What matters is what we do with our time and energy. And I harp on that hardcore in terms of our emotions as well as what value you place on your time and your energy. So I always say, for instance, if somebody wants to write a book themselves or write content themselves, they can absolutely do that, right? You can absolutely write a book in a weekend and get it published on Amazon and do all of that, right? But what is that going to do to your time and energy? And that time suck away from other things that you actually want to be doing will be worse for your emotional state of being long term. And all of that has to do with one another. Because if you're not present, if you're not aware of your emotional state and how your time and energy are negatively or positively impacting that emotional state, then you can go all over the place. And then the times when you want to be present, you might not be able to. You might not have enough energy in your reservoir, in your tank, to be able to be the most present business person, most present parent, most present daughter or son, right? So that's really important to consider and think about.
That's great. Good stuff. So as we're wrapping up here, I know Rob is going to ask you about your offer, but what's a good way for our community to reach you, for sure?
Thank you. So you can go to thesoulalignedghostwriter.com. That's my website. And I would love to connect with you on LinkedIn. I am there multiple times a week. I love, love, love connecting with new faces and having intro calls, seeing how we can make the world a better place together.
Appreciate that, Danielle. And everybody reach out to Danielle. I mean, we're just scratching the surface here. And I can tell you, as branding professional, even though we're in a little different space, what Danielle's talking about is a lot of important stuff that you can use to help you rise above the rest of the crowd and what you're attempting to do. But Danielle, tell us about the giveaway that you have for our audience today.
Yeah, so I started a Substack recently. So if you go to my website, you can subscribe to my Substack, and I send out newsletters every Tuesday morning. And they're usually about different things that I'm thinking about, like vulnerability storytelling, emotional state, all the things that we talked about today, and other topics as well.
That's great. Well, it looked like there was a question from Bobby. Bobby, you're going to have to connect with Danielle and get the answer on your question about her process. But We just appreciate you, Danielle. We're going to put you in the green room and we wrap up the show. Thank you so much. You blessed our audience in a big way.
Thank you so much.
Good
All right.
stuff. Good stuff. It's sometimes you have a guest on, you're like, man, I wish we had more time, right? She's definitely one of them.
No doubt.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So as we wrap up here, I want to just make sure, listen, community, we're going to be back here next week. Make sure, same back time, same back channel. It'll be episode 165. It's crazy how far along we've come. It says 164, but it's actually 165. That's a typo on my part. But May 29th, Own It While You Hone It by Robin Hatcher. It's going to be incredible. And if you're interested in being a sponsor of that show, and it'll show you some more things, as well as seeing what the up and coming, we're booked out all the way till I believe it's the beginning of November. That's how many, it's how we have guests lined up. And so you can see all the future shows. I don't think Rob has got us up that far, but we're pretty far along, all the way to like mid to late August. So make sure you find out about what's coming up. But I want to close with a little something I want to talk to you about, right? And I've been ending the show with these little stories, right? So let me tell you about J.K. Rowling, right? The renowned author of the Harry Potter series, right? Faced with numerous rejections and personal hardship before her success, as a single mom living on welfare, she bravely shared her story of struggle and perseverance. Rowling's openness about her battles with depression and poverty has inspired millions, showing that embracing and sharing our vulnerabilities can lead to profound personal and professional triumphs. Her journey reminds us that our darkest times can be the foundation for our greatest achievement. Remember, folks, let's make sure to be that light for someone. Appreciate you guys.
And you start to hear some of their challenges, and yes,
because it speaks to the core of who you are and what drives you forward. Because what makes you different is what drives